So I was on my hands and knees praying. It's like one of the only times I've ever been on my hands and knees praying. And the business had been at farmer's market. It had gotten some traction. It was in a couple grocery stores. We were online, but it was really just sucking money because the margins were so bad. But I loved that I was helping people, like diabetics could eat pizza again. I was able to eat pizza again. But I had used our savings account. We were remodeling our house. I used our garage money. We had no garage. We were negative 269,000 in that business. My ego was so big. So I just prayed to God, please shut this business down because I don't have, my ego is taking over. I can't shut it down because I know that so many people love it, or make it successful. But I can't keep going because I don't have any more money. And I'm not kidding. 3 days later, I dreamt, shared Jessie's story. That's the story that went viral. God opened that door. I don't know if all your viewers are believers. I wasn't always a believer, but I've seen mountains move. And that was a mountain in my business that moved because that business took off. And in January of 2017, and we shared that story January 3rd, January of 2017, we sold more than we had the entire year before in 2016. And by the end of that year, we had done 5.3 million in pizza sales, and I was in the black. I had paid back the debt to my family. We had a business, and I started hiring friends and family. So I made God my CEO, and he opened doors for me.
Welcome back, Downward Glow family. I'm here with Amy Lacey, and she created a wonderful brand and product that we had to Glow Up last year. If you remember the Soursop nutrition drinks that we had and the wonderful circle that they led. And she has a very inspiring story about how she came to create that and just the unique path she's walked in the healing realm. Thank you so much for being here, Amy. It's good to have you.
Thank you. This is so exciting. First of all, I was so impressed with your event last year. Just the love. I go to a lot of events and I'm in masterminds and I go to retreats, but there was something different about that. And I don't just say that because I'm a guest here today. It was really special and unique and different in a very positive, loving. You felt, I didn't want to leave. I had to leave early because I had to go to a different event and I didn't want to leave. I almost canceled my other event and flaky on it. But if you're having that again, everybody that's listening needs to attend it because you're going to walk away feeling love like you've never felt before. And there's no discrimination. There's no black. There's no white. There's no nothing like that. There's no, I don't even know what else to say. You're just, everybody's accepted and loved. And some people are on roller skates and some people are dancing and some people are under a mound of blankets on a bed, not an actual bed, but a pad, and just super cozy. It's just such a different, but very accepting and loving group of people. So kudos to you for having that, because that's rare.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that and that reflection. We're so glad you had a good time and you were part of that and your team was part of that. And I think the reason why it feels that way is because everyone that's co-creating it has their own story and they know what it's like to be on a healing journey and to come out the other side and just want to support other people to step into highest versions of themselves. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got to get one of those down in the Florida area like we talked about last year. We got to figure that out.
I would love to do that. And remind me, is it Miami? Are you in Miami?
Actually in Melbourne, which is a couple hours north of Miami, but we both share the Atlantic coast, the East Coast, so the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, but I do a lot down in Miami. Ironically, a lot of people in Miami have heard of the fruit soursop and most people have never heard of it. So I spend a lot of time down there because those are our people and they love it and it's good. So yeah.
Yeah, I know that soursop is a very unique fruit with a lot of benefits and you were the first to introduce it into these healing drinks and powders and smoothie shakes and stuff. But let's go all the way back to the beginning so we know how you got there. And I always invite people to share where they're from, where they were born, and what was their journey up to now in 3 minutes and 33 seconds.
I try to do it. I used to not be able to talk about this. It was very painful and I shoved it down. And one of the things I learned before I go into my details is if you don't release the trauma that you felt as a child, teenager, adult, it will manifest itself in illness. And I got very sick. But if I go back to, I was born, I almost wasn't born. My mom accidentally got pregnant with me and it was 1970. I'll be 55 at the end of this month. By the way, I heard you're an Aries. When's your birthday?
April 8th. What about you?
March 28th.
Okay,
so we're a little different.
Yeah,
Little
you're
different.
pretty early in the Aries trajectory.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyways, my mom tried to abort me in Mexico because abortion was illegal in 1970 and it didn't work out. So my dad married her, did the honorable thing, might be the only honorable thing he ever did. He drank himself to death. He died in 2016. But my mom left him when I was 2 because he was an alcoholic and soon to be drug addict. And she didn't want that life for us. And so she was very brave and a single mom. And often when people are scared, and I learned this in therapy many years later, when people are scared and they don't feel like they have control, they express rage and anger. So I never knew what I was going to get when my mom came home from work. She was very scared. She wasn't sure how she was going to support us. And she grew up with a rager and her grandmother married a rager. And I know in other episodes you talked about breaking the chains, the cycle of chains. And I believe I did that with who I married. I didn't marry a rager. I didn't marry an alcoholic. So I did break the chain. But I'm very proud of my mom looking back on it. It took a lot of time to forgive her because she was a rager and I didn't know what I was going to get. And at the age of 12, I decided I was done with it and I ran away from home. And when I ran away from home, I lived at various different friends' houses. And then people were like, okay, you have to come home. I spent a few nights on the park bench. I was born and raised in Chico, California. So back then it was pretty safe. Now I'd be mortified if I did a park bench, but pretty safe. Eventually my principal got involved and they put me into a foster home. I ran away from the foster home and I had a choice. I could go to juvenile hall for not going to school or I could live with my biological father. So I went and lived with my biological father in an apartment complex and he worked construction during the day and bartended at night. So he was never home, but he had this one rule and he was like, you do not leave the apartment after 9 o'clock at night. I was an only child, a rebellious child. And at 9 o'clock at night, one night, I decided I wanted to go out by the pool and hang out. And there was this group of Marines and other people out there. And by the end of the night, I had been sexually assaulted by a 22-year-old Marine at the age of 12. And that is a story I never shared until I'm going to be 55. I didn't share that story until I was about 51. And through therapy and through EMDR and through a lot of counseling, I felt like it was time for me to share the story. But more importantly, I was at a small event. And at that event, many of us shared what we had experienced. And over half the women had been sexually assaulted either by another woman, a coach, another man, their relative. I was shocked. I always thought it was me. With a lot of shame because I was told not to leave after 9 and I put myself in that position. And I was really flirty out at the pool. I was flirting. I was getting attention. I was 12. I didn't know what I was doing. So I always blamed myself. I held on to that. And at the age of 40, one night, let me backtrack. I got married and I had 3 kids and I've been married. It'll be at the end of this month, I'll be 28 years. So the counselors. Yes, the counselors tell me that is very rare, that I have gone through all that I've gone through and that I've been able to maintain a relationship for that long. And we have 3 kids. So when my kids were born and we started having our family, I cherished family traditions. I wanted to eat at the table as a family because I never did that. I wanted to have I used to play with my kids because I never really played as a kid that much. So I would play by myself. And so I had these traditions and one of them was a Friday night family fun night and game night. And so in 2015, Friday night, the next day when I woke up, which was Saturday, Halloween, I could not get out of bed. I was in so much pain. And my husband had to take the kids to a Halloween party. I stayed in bed. And it turns out I was diagnosed with lupus and Sjogren's. And so I believe burying what happened to me and the trauma I experienced during that time manifested itself in illness many years later. And so I went looking for a way to bring back family fun night, board games, and pizza, because I'm pretty sure the Domino's pizza I was eating was causing my illness. Inflammation was attacking my body and I couldn't get out of bed. So I found a recipe online for a cauliflower pizza crust and I ended up perfecting that. And I took my kids to farmers market with cauliflower pizza crust because people loved it, just to teach them how to work a business and how to talk to people and how to sell. And that business went viral. And in 2017, we used what we call a story brand technique. which is similar to what you all did at your event. You're telling stories through music, but this is telling stories online. And instead of selling your product and just talking about the cauliflower pizza crust, it was talking about this consumer and how it helped her in her story of autism. That story went viral. And so at the end of 2017, we had sold 5.3 million in pizzas, and I had a business I wasn't planning. It wasn't a business I planned. So I was like, oh boy, I've had businesses before, but nothing like that. So I had to learn how to get a team. I had to learn how manufacturing. I had to learn distribution. By the end of 2018, we were the #1 pizza crust on Amazon for 16 months straight, and we were selling a pizza crust every 5 seconds. So in 2019, massive fire happened in Northern California, similar to what we just went through in Southern California, but this happened in Northern California. It was called the Camp Fire, which was in Paradise, California. Now, going back to my childhood, I eventually had to leave my dad's house, and I went to live with an aunt and uncle in Gaston, Oregon. They lived on a farm, and that changed my life because they had no kids, but my aunt taught me how to sew, and she spent time with me, and my uncle taught me algebra, and they made me clean chicken coops and build fences and take care of animals. And I had a sense of purpose, and I felt love, and I felt community and family. I went to school there. So I lived there for 6 months. I felt like I got my head back on. I never did share what happened to me, though, about the sexual assault with anybody in my family. And then I went back to live with my mom, who had remarried to my stepdad, and they're currently married today still. And I'm very close to them. But it took many, many years for me to forgive. And I want to go back to the forgiveness thing because I had to forgive myself and I had to forgive my mom. I want to go back to that in a minute, but I want to finish with this Cali'Flour and this fire. So the fire happened, it burned down this town of Paradise, California. Entire town burned down. And that happened to be where my mom and my stepdad lived. And my other aunt who had no kids, not the one I lived with in Oregon, a different aunt. And so I had been offered some money for my company to buy it. And I saw that kind of as a sign from God, really, to sell my company and move everybody out of Northern California to Florida. Now, my mom and my stepdad's house did not burn down, and neither did my aunt's, which is a blessing. It didn't burn down. The whole town burned down, so it wasn't livable. There was no running water. There's no electricity, so they couldn't live in it. But the bad part of that whole situation is nobody really has any money, and insurance isn't going to cover it. So they have a house still, but they can't live in it, and there's no insurance to cover it. So they're all in my house with their animals, and it was chaotic. And so I ended up selling a large portion of Cali'Flour Foods, and we moved to Florida. As I told my husband, he moved to California for me, and I said, where do you want to live? And he's like, I want to live on the water in a dream house in Melbourne, Florida. Okay. So I moved everybody to Melbourne, Florida, and my venture capitalist purchased the company, and I lost my role as the CEO. And eventually they would go on to put me on sabbatical. And when I came off sabbatical, they changed all my passwords and they fired my team, which my team consisted of people like Stephanie. Stephanie was a team member for Cali'Flour, actually. She was one of the few they didn't fire. But Stephanie from that event, just good people they fired, and they changed the recipe. And you know what? Venture capitalists do that. They think they're doing things to make the company more efficient, lowering the margins. I always took pride in that it was 5 ingredients or less. We used fresh cauliflower. It was a good product, but it was expensive to make. So they made it cheaper. And I want to give a little side note to your viewers. 70% of the food in the grocery store is owned by 11 companies, and they're big companies like Pepsi, Kraft, Kellogg's, Nestle. They're big companies. The FDA allows, and I think this might get cleaned up, but who knows in politics, who knows what's happening there. But the FDA allows a 20% variance on your labels. So you could have 20% more oil or sugar in your product and not claim it. And I guarantee you, yes, look it up, FDA, 20%.
I did not know that. Yeah, I don't know that someone else knew that either.
No, I say it every time I'm on stage, everywhere I go. I want people to know that because those big brands, that 70% of our food is taking advantage of that rule. And maybe that'll change. I don't know. But you need to look at the food you're eating and the founder behind it, the company behind it. For example, Siete Foods, great product. She had autoimmune issues, very similar to me, created a great gluten-free product, but Pepsi bought it. I don't know if it's going to stay great. But it's important to look at who owns the brand and why they created the brand. And if they created it just to make money, run for the hills, because it probably doesn't have all the greatest ingredients in it, because cheap. That's why when you go to Italy, you can eat a pizza and not have inflammation. But if you eat a pizza here, you're massively inflamed. All right, I'm getting on a side. I'm going way off, and it's been way longer than 3 minutes, Dijon.
It's good information, though. It's good information.
I just think people really need to look at where the food's coming from, because we all, even though I have lupus and Sjogren's and inflammation runs havoc on my body, we all suffer from inflammation depending on what we're putting in our body. And we need to realize where our food's coming from. So we moved to Florida. I lose my CEO position. It's like a full circle moment. I get depressed. I get my lupus flares up. I've lost this, what I consider my 4th child. And it's just this horrific thing. And I land in therapy again. Now, I've been in and out of therapy my whole life for all the things I've experienced. And in therapy, this girl sits next to me, this woman, and she's there because her daughter was diagnosed with cancer and all the things that happened with her family. They couldn't afford the bariatric treatment, which is an alternative treatment they were doing for their daughter. It bankrupted them. They lost their home. She was in counseling for all of that. But she shared this special ingredient with me called soursop that really helped her daughter. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and so I went looking at soursop, and it was a great distraction from me from losing Cali'Flour and from moving. And during that time, we moved the summer of 2019 to Florida, and then 2020 hit with COVID. Meeting people and all of that was just not happening. And so it was a great diversion to throw myself into healing again and finding something that has superpowers, really. That's kind of my story. But the thing that I stress a lot about isn't go out and buy soursop. It's you've got to deal with your trauma or it's going to manifest itself in illness. You've got to be mindful of what you're eating. We all are suffering from inflammation, whether you're me, 55, a little overweight, or you in your 20s in great shape. Everybody has inflammation in their body. You just don't know it yet because of your youth and the shape that you're in. But eventually what we do in our 20s affects our 30s and so on. 30s affects our 40s. 40s affects our 50s and so on. So it's really important to pay attention to that early and always. And then the other thing I really want to talk about that I think stagnates people, if that's a correct word, it makes people not able to grow, not able to move forward, whether it's in business or relationships, and that's forgiveness. If you cannot forgive, so I needed to forgive my dad. I needed to forgive my mom. I needed to forgive myself, more importantly. And I needed to forgive the venture capitalists too. And so I learned a lot about forgiveness and letting go, because when you don't forgive and you wallow in anger, first of all, you can't be angry and have gratitude at the same time. So everybody that talks about doing gratitude journals, there's something really real about that. It's not just a fluffy thing to do. It's like a real thing. You just can't be angry and have gratitude at the same time. So letting go of the anger and forgiving is really a health benefit to you. It's like getting 8 hours of sleep a night and working out and eating the best foods. It is the best thing for you to release that. And it doesn't mean you have to forgive. I'm never going to forgive the 22-year-old Marine that sexually assaulted me, covered my mouth, and assaulted me at 12 years old. I'll never forgive him, but I can forgive myself that I was 12 years old and I made a mistake of putting myself in that position. I can forgive the incident that happened and see beyond it and see how it shaped my life. And that forgiveness and that letting go has allowed me now to start a new business and allowed me to grow in my previous businesses and my relationships. And I think that's why I'm still married with 3 kids, and life isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. That's a lot. I tried to go fast. I try to go really fast.
To say I wasn't expecting that, not that you have certain expectations, but you just never know what people have experienced and what they've overcome in their lives. First of all, just thank you for your vulnerability, and I celebrate your resilience.
Thank you.
And the tenacity of your soul to be here and do what it's doing from the womb. Even just that part of it. I don't think I've ever heard someone who was almost aborted, but then it didn't take. I've never even heard that. So yeah, just so many instances of you overcoming difficult situations and being a cycle breaker in your family.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about your mom being a rager and then the different aspects of your ancestry that were married to that, to me
Yeah.
is very indicative of how ancestral trauma happens, because it's not even so much that it was like this person was this. It's more there was some wound further back up the line, and then this trauma reacted to it through
Yeah.
this outward expression, and then that continued ping-ponging back and forth in the line until somebody, you in this case, has the courage and the intentionality to do something different, to feel, to go to therapy, to heal, and to transmute all that energy. Bravo on that. It's definitely
Thank
not
you.
an easy thing.
You said something in your podcast that I listened to. It's a podcast you did in February. And you said often people will look for either the same type of person that they'll be connected to, that they'll date or marry, or the opposite. And when you said that, I was like, yeah, that's so true. My great grandmother, she married an alcoholic. My grandmother married an alcoholic. My mom married an alcoholic. But I broke that chain. I married just the opposite. I married this guy that came from a very great family. That's a great family. There's a dad that I think in 30 some odd years I've known him, I've seen him drunk one time. It's not like he doesn't drink, but he doesn't overindulge. He doesn't rage. It helped me too to learn about my mom's childhood, to forgive her. So if you're at odds with a family member or even a friend, learning what maybe they went through, to have a little empathy and some grace goes a long way. So I take care of my aunt now, the one that has no children, that lived in paradise. And she and I have spent many days together, and she's told me about their childhood, things that my mom never told me. Maybe she didn't want to burden me with them. Maybe she was embarrassed. But their dad was schizophrenic. He did indulge in alcohol, but his biggest problem was he was a borderline schizophrenic and he raged. So my mom was in that atmosphere of raging. And it's just interesting. I can't even imagine marrying somebody like that. And when I started showing some signs of raging and depression, I immediately put myself in therapy because I was like, I will not jeopardize my family. I will not lose my family.
Yeah, that's a profound choice, and I'm glad that you made it, and I'm sure your family is also. And I also have compassion for previous generations, because in this time period, a lot of things are normalized that weren't normalized in the past, like therapy and healing, and all these tools are very common in the world we live in. And it just wasn't that way. Dharma Glow did not exist where people were coming together for the healing purposes. There was like the hippie generation, but I don't know that they had the same level of intentionality because they were also getting introduced to all the different drugs and medicines. And I feel like it was a very new thing, and it ended up going down a darker direction. And I think that's normal, because when we're learning how to use things or integrate them as a species, it's like being a child, like being a baby with, and I think that's how we are with the internet and technology and all these things. It's learning how to be in right relationship with things that can be neutral or positive if you use them intentionally. But before you learn how to do that, oftentimes they're abused. So you're on the one end of the spectrum where you're doing things and abusing it, or you're being averse to it. And by this point, I think there's more understanding about how to engage with these things with a certain level of maturity and responsibility, and address these things in the way that you did.
Well said. Very well said. My mom is a great grandmother, and she often says, I'm a better grandmother than I was a mom because life is different now. I'm happily married. I have resources. I don't have the stress. I have the time. With you, I was very stressed out. I was worried. I wasn't I had these other plans and they didn't happen. And so I think you're absolutely right. It's just, we have so many more resources. And I will say too, I was resistant to going to counseling. I did it because my oldest son was like, I think you need it. And I wanted him to look at me in a different light. And I could see patterns of raging coming out, especially when the venture capitalists, I felt again, scared and out of control in that situation. And it would carry over into my family. So when my oldest said, I think you need help, I listened. And The other thing about being raised by an addicted parent or having addiction all the way down your family is I see signs of impulse and addiction in me, within me, not with alcohol or drugs like they had, but with food. I have been known to binge eat, with binge shopping at a time where I was making a lot of money. I was binge shopping or even binge gambling at times. And I would justify the shopping and the gambling by donating to charity. Oh, if I drop 10 grand at Saks Fifth Avenue, which did happen once, I'm going to give 10 grand to this church to justify it, which isn't necessarily, it's not healthy, because what I spent in that $10,000 shopping spree was left in my closet, hidden in the back with tags on it. I never even wore it. It was just like that feeling, that high. So I've been known to really have to examine my behaviors. It's just not with alcohol and drugs. And the same with food binging. Kids love this certain donut, which I should not do. And I can remember going to getting them and getting a dozen for myself and eating them on the drive home to the kids and just being like, wait, out of control. What are you doing? So it's something that I've struggled with a lot, that I have to have mindfulness with and have something else in its place when I start feeling that anxiety and that need to be impulsive or lean into some kind of addicted behavior. It's mindset, like realizing, okay, I'm feeling this anxiety, accept it and find an outlet for it, or sit in it until that urge goes away, but don't act on it.
Yes, that compassionate awareness is so important. And yeah, there were so many things about your story that were extraordinary, but what you said about how the cauliflower pizza crust business got started and how successful it became and so quickly is a testament to kind of like the American capitalistic structure that can create that sort of success for someone out of nowhere. That's a beautiful thing, that just a random person can just and have that happen. And then the shadow side is that we're constantly being sold on external things to numb ourselves or escape. So it's good to have the optionality and also to know how to be content with what you have and to be able to be present with whatever's arising, because there's so many of us that do have those addictions. I've definitely been addicted to food, gambling, sex, things that are more societally acceptable than maybe doing drugs, but it's the same energetic about it, or that you're trying to escape something, or you're trying to fill something that doesn't feel right. And I think it does take usually a while and usually a come to Jesus moment, whether it's your child expressing that they want you to do it or some external thing that prompts you to actually face what's going on. And I think even still, a lot of people aren't able to do that.
Yeah.
And I have compassion for that, because if you looked at anyone's story in its totality, I think that you would be able to understand who they were. And that's what you were saying about as you got to know your mom and your aunt's story from childhood, it just gave you more perspective and compassion. And if your mom was trying to have an abortion when she was pregnant with you, that's saying that she wasn't ready on probably a number of levels. So then when she ended up having the child, and she also has this unprocessed trauma that there isn't an outlet for, and she doesn't feel ready, I could understand why that rage that was implanted in her was like now coming out to be expressed.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't condone things that people do, but it just helps you to have perspective.
Absolutely. And she grew up with, I loved my grandmother, who is no longer alive, but she grew up with a mom, and then her dad was very abusive verbally and physically to some degree. And my grandmother left him, which was really unheard of back then. Her mother and father, and again, her father, my grandmother's father, my great-grandfather was an alcoholic. She went to them and said, I have to get these kids out of here. He's abusing us. And they slammed the door in her face. I'm sure it wasn't my great-grandmother, but it was my great-grandfather, and said, you made your bed, you lay in it. And they're coming from the Depression. So they weren't willing to help. And then my grandmother wasn't willing to help my mom. So the fear of just like, how am I going to put a roof and food is something I've never had to experience except for as a child. So I have a lot of empathy for my mom and a lot of grace and forgiveness for what she went through. But it wasn't always that way. I used to really resent it. And I used to resent her saying when she would get angry, I wanted to be a nurse and you prevented me from going to nursing school, that kind of thing, like that guilt. But I just have a lot of empathy for people. And the story that a lot of people say, how did Cali'Flour actually happen? Like, how did it go from farmer's market to selling millions? And the story that went viral is a single mom of 4 kids. So again, near and dear to my heart, reaches out to us and says in Redding, California, so she's like an hour and a half away from our home office, says, my daughter is severely autistic. The doctor just put her on a low carb diet. She loves pizza and your pizza has no carbs in it. Is it possible that you would be willing to send some free product to a single mom? I grew up eating the hot lunches at school and being embarrassed because it's the free lunch, that kind of thing. So of course I was like, yeah, we'll send product up there. So we kept sending product for 7 months straight. The mom's name is Jessie. And Jessie called me one day and she said, can you come visit? I have a surprise for you. And I said, sure. So I made the hour and a half trek up there. And when she opened the door, Kenzie was nonverbal autistic, her youngest child. Kenzie comes running up, gives me a hug. I didn't know Kenzie, says, thank you, is talking. But Jessie, who I had met before and who I'd seen pictures of, weighed over 300 pounds and she had lost over 100 pounds because Kenzie wouldn't eat unless Jessie sat down and ate with her, and they were eating low carb. And so she lost a lot of weight. Now, I'm not saying in 7 months she should lose over 100 pounds, but that story we shared. We tried to share the weight loss story and we got shut down on Facebook because they didn't like you talking about weight loss products. So we shared the autism, the nonverbal to verbal, the doctor putting on low carb, and that they ate the pizza crust at least twice a day because they were taking them. She was like part of our recipe development at one point. They were using them for sandwiches and roll-ups and breakfast pizzas and all kinds of things. So yeah, we shared that story. That went viral. And I will tell you, I grew up with no religion, never went to church. Didn't know who God was, didn't know about the Bible. Nobody taught me anything. My stepdad was an atheist. My aunt and uncle that lived in Oregon that I went to live with, that lived on a farm that changed my life, were atheists. So in 2015, I accepted Jesus into my life. 2016 is when I was playing with the cauliflower pizza crust, and 2017 is when it went viral. God was my CEO. I made God my CEO. If you look at the only Bible that's ever been given to me, and there are no accidents, right? But I was accidentally invited to a Bible study. It happened to be this group of women having a Bible study. One of the women was my children's piano teacher. She happened to have my email. Her normal group was an Amy with the last name L, and she accidentally sent it to me, Amy Lacey, instead of Amy Lenigan. I immediately wrote back and said, I'm in to learn the book of James from Beth Moore. I just accepted Jesus into my life. I want to learn. I don't know anything. She goes to her regular Bible group and says, well, you guys, I accidentally send this. I don't even know this woman. I teach her kids piano lessons. What are we going to do? And they're like, there's no accidents, Nancy. We're going to let her come to the Bible class. I didn't know that for years later, that had been a group for many years, and then I was this outsider coming in. But I learned so much, and one of them gave me a Bible, and all through it in 2016 and 17, you see where I studied scripture, and I was like leaning into God's word to help me manage this company. The night before it went viral, is 3 days before. So I was on my hands and knees praying. It was the end of 16, beginning of 2017. It's like New Year's. I'm on my hands and knees praying. It's like one of the only times I've ever been on my hands and knees praying. And the business had been at farmer's market. It had gotten some traction. It was in a couple grocery stores. We were online, but it was really just sucking money because the margins were so bad. But I loved that I was helping people, like diabetics could eat pizza again. I was able to eat pizza again. But I had used our savings account. We were remodeling our house. I used our garage money. We had no garage. We were negative 269,000 in that business. But my ego was, yes, I used everything. My ego was so big.
Were you running the business to get that far in debt?
It was like I had started playing with the recipe in 2014. In 2015, 16, I was doing farmer's market, and it was also getting in grocery stores. So it was a couple of years, and I had bootstrapped it, and I had one employee only at that time. So I just prayed to God, please shut this business down, because I don't have, my ego is taking over. I can't shut it down because I know that so many people love it, or make it successful, but I can't keep going because I don't have any more money. And I'm not kidding. 3 days later, I dreamt, share Jessie's story, because Jessie's story had happened. Share Jessie's story. And I called my one employee and I said, I think we're supposed to share Jessie's story. And she said, her name is Jimmy, spelled like Jimi Hendrix, but it's female. Maybe you'll meet her in October. Maybe I'll take her with me. She would love your program. She said, I think you better ask Jessie if you can share her story. And so I went to Jessie and I said, can I share your story? And Jessie was so excited. I'll be the Jessie of CaliFlour Foods, like the Jared of Subway without the perversion. I was like, great. Okay, we're going to share your story. That's the story that went viral. God opened that door. I don't know if all your viewers are believers. I wasn't always a believer, but I've seen mountains move, and that was a mountain in my business that moved, because that business took off. And in January of 2017, and we shared that story January 3rd. In January of 2017, we sold more than we had the entire year before in 2016. And by the end of that year, we had done 5.3 million in pizza sales, and I was in the black. I had paid back the debt to my family. We had a business, and I started hiring friends and family. So I made God my CEO, and he opened doors for me. And I can look back, again, I didn't know religion, but I can look back on those times where I was sleeping on the park bench, and I know somebody was with me, and somebody was protecting me and with me. I know it. And so there are all kinds of stories like that. But yeah, I wish I could say that, like, when I accepted Jesus that night, the next day I woke up and I was pain free, but that didn't happen. But I've learned a lot of lessons through my pain, and that business came out of my pain of wanting to have that family fun night and be able to eat pizza again. And now with Soursop, it's come out of the desire to help a family member that was going through something very traumatic. And in turn, when I was ordering the fruit, I realized what it was doing for me and my inflammation. And I had been studying the food industry, and I knew how horrific it was, and that we all have inflammation. Jijan, you have inflammation. You just don't know it because you are a healthy young man, but you've got it there and it's affecting your inside. And I don't drink, but I remember the doctor saying, you have non-alcoholic liver disease, and it's being caused from your inflammation, and you got to get it fixed quickly. That's what made me drawn to other natural foods like soursop, the fruit that's grown in other parts of the world that we don't bring into the United States. Why? Why aren't we bringing this fruit into the United States? If you read the WebMD article that was published by a rebellious doctor in April of 2024, it's because soursop is known. It has known properties that kill cancer cells in certain types of cancer. Big Pharma doesn't want that, right? They want to keep us sick because they make millions and billions and trillions of dollars. So I worked in Big Pharma. I was a pharmaceutical rep for 6 years right out of college. So I understand that side of it to a certain degree, but I really understand the food industry, and I learned a lot. And I know that we have to really be mindful of what we put into our body, and inflammation is a silent killer. I know that. So I'm getting on my my high horse here, but I've learned a lot, and I had to learn a lot in the hard way, but that was one of the blessings. And I say God is my CEO, and sometimes I can say it and people are really like, great, that's so exciting. And sometimes people are like, what? Don't talk about that in my podcast or whatever. But I know you're a very spiritual being, and I appreciate that. And I remember feeling that at your event.
Your story is so rich. There's so many dimensions, like deep into ancestral healing, taking on Big Pharma and the food.
Well, I don't know if I've taken on Big Pharma. I have to be really careful because they will shut me down. So I never talk about the C word. I talk about that it builds immunity, because people that have had cancer have to build their immune system back up. People that have had lupus like myself, they need a strong immune system. It builds immunity. I can say that all day long. We add echinacea and elderberry. Those are superfoods that build immunity. It fights inflammation. I know that. And I can say those things, and I can say cell regeneration, but I cannot say that it does anything with cancer. I can never mention cancer. I'm mentioning it here because it's a safe space, but I cannot talk about that when I'm at an event. If I'm at your event, I cannot talk about that. But it's funny because some of the people at your event knew about it. And that doesn't surprise me that your people are very healthy people and know alternative health ways. Several people knew about the fruit,
Right.
and some of them knew about it from cancer. So interesting. You had a couple people making food. I bought some of their food, not just the truck that was outside, but some internal people. One girl was making sushi. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. Another one was making these power balls, and she definitely knew all about soursop.
I didn't see that. You got a little
Yeah,
treat.
yeah, yeah. I think your mom saw it because I think she's the one that said, "Oh, if you're hungry, the food truck's coming." But we have this person over here has made some food too. I love your mom, by the way. She's like,
Yeah.
you both are like super accomplished and have done so many things. And you can tell you have the heart to pay it forward. And that's one of the P's of my business is paying it forward. I think it comes back to you tenfold. Look at Jessie's story is a great example.
Yeah, there's so much richness. And I love just the fact that a story is what communicated the heart of you and your brand and really made it go viral, but also just your willingness to support and continue on with the vision that you had based on like pure intentions, which is the opposite of what the VCs were doing when they were just wanting to like optimize and make a product.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's their job, though. That's what they do. And they're dealing with that I can't say to this day the amount of money, but it was an 8-figure deal. And when you're dealing with that kind of money, and the money behind the venture capitalists actually were old Lehman Brothers, which I didn't know at the time until I did due diligence. And you know what they did back in 2009 and 10, they ran havoc in Lehman Brothers. It was not a good thing. That's old money coming from that. They're just doing what they know to do. And so it's up to the consumers to look at the founders and see where those products are coming from. I know that we're almost out of time. I know that it's getting late, but yeah, thank you for letting me tell my story and letting me be at
It's so
your
powerful.
event.
I'm so inspired by so many aspects of it. I think I'll have to sit and process all the things that I heard. But one thing that specifically stood out to me is just your reconnection with Jesus, because our connection with Jesus, since you never had that. And for me, it was a reconnection because I grew up in Atlanta in the South. So religion, and my great grandfather was a pastor. So my family was always a part of the church. And I went to a Christian school. So that was always something that was pushed onto me. But at the same time, there were so many things I observed and people's behavior and at the school that I knew weren't rooted in love.
Yeah.
And that's true in the Bible too. There's plenty of things that are profoundly wise and loving in the Bible. And to me, there's also a lot of distortion. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right to my system. And I always knew that even when I was little, just studying it, because it was part of our class, was Bible study. And then I went off to California and studied a lot of other spiritual traditions and learned things from that. But then when I came back to Atlanta, even before that, but when I came back to Atlanta, Jesus started communicating with me directly a lot in ways that I couldn't deny.
Yeah.
And I came across many different teachings that were channeled, which people can believe or not believe if they're authentic. But the Bible are stories from other people about Jesus. And a lot of times they were written 60, 80 years later and then translated many times. Like when people are saying, Jesus didn't say that, he said this. I'm like, if I asked you what we talked about tomorrow, you're not going to be able to exactly say what it was. You can say the general context, but as far as the exact language, you're not going to be able to catch that. So 60 or 80 years later, and then translated multiple times, you're not going to be able to know exactly what was said. And to me, it's more about understanding the heart posture that he was inviting us to be in. And
for sure.
And it's based on where I'm at now. And a lot of people in the community, we're operating more in the Christ consciousness framework, more so than the Christianity, because to me, based on the Christianity I was taught, it's hierarchical. And Jesus is the one expression of God in form, and everyone else is original sin and trying to live up to that. And he died for our sins. And I don't see it that way. I see it as he is an example of what's possible for a human being when they put union with God above everything else. And everyone has not only the choice, but like the responsibility to walk the path also. Like it's not enough that Jesus did it and now you're absolved of being the presence of love and form, it's no, and now it's your responsibility to make the same choices. And to me, it was just like love, compassion, forgiveness. Like you talked about all the forgiveness. And when we don't fully embody those things, I do think there's residual energetics that have to be healed that then manifest externally.
Yes.
And Jesus' story of saying, Father, forgive them while he was on the cross, regardless of whether that's true or not, I think it exemplifies what his perspective was.
Yes.
The forgiveness was for him and for the energetic within him to not hold on to that negative energy and just still be a conduit for love. And to me, that's what being a Christed being is. To me, Christ isn't complicated. It's just being the choice of unconditional love. So
Exactly. I
everyone
love
knows how to do that, and they can do it in a moment. Like you were doing it with this woman who asked for your help. She asked for your help and you gave it over and over again, even though your business was in the red. And we all have different places where it's harder to embody that. I think everyone probably has places where there's unforgiveness. And the way I think I read in a book, it said, do you want to be right or do you want to have peace? Because we
Yes.
can all justify why we are withholding love. But if the truth is that we're all one and we're all just different fractals of the same being, then anything we're withholding from somebody else, we're withholding from ourselves.
Wow.
And the,
Powerful.
yeah, so then the sickness, the dis-ease that we feel is a reflection of, on the deepest level, it's something in our mindset, our spiritual framework where we're withholding and we're not giving love to that part. And then therefore there's a reflection of it, because at some point to create peace, total forgiveness has to happen. If you think about any conflict, the Israeli and the Palestinians or whatever, there's always a justification for why certain behavior is being exhibited. They did this, so I'm doing this. And at some point to get past it, there has to be like total and complete forgiveness of everything in the past and pure love in the presence. And it's like we start from here. And that's the only way really to heal fully, you
Yeah,
know?
I love that. Wow, that is really well said. I'm going to have to listen to this and take notes. That is so well said. And sometimes I'll get accused of just being really churchy or religion. And I'm like, no, I believe in love. I believe, yes, I believe in Jesus. And yes, I feel like he's my guide. But for me, he accepts everyone under unconditional love.
Exactly.
So I don't believe in gay people going to hell. I accept everybody. And I just use that as an example because that's been pushed onto me before. I'm gay, so you probably think I'm going to hell. No, somebody very close to me is gay. So I'm like, no, I don't believe that at all. I believe in unconditional love. And it's something I don't feel like I grew up with a lot of that, but I definitely believe in it. And I hope that I give that because I
Yeah, I feel it
never.
in your presence. I feel the levity and the genuine desire to be of service with everything that you do. And it's very different than someone who is doing something for the money. You can feel the difference than somebody who really cares and is really trying to bring forth something positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said to my husband, why does she keep going? Like, why didn't she just enjoy what she had? I wasn't really enjoying what I had. I
Yeah,
enjoy creating something that's not there yet that helps a lot of people. And is Soursop making a lot of money? No, not at all. It's actually taking a lot of money, but it's helping a lot of people. It's making an impact and it's going to make a big impact. So that's very fulfilling to me.
Yeah, I think your previous company showed how things can change in an
Yeah,
instant,
you never
especially
know.
when you're walking in faith. I already was using it, but now I'm like that much more passionate about not only using it, but encouraging other people to use it, because it's like I know the energetics that are flowing underneath it, and there's so much healing and intentionality. So, you gotta,
They can use shop 20 off to get 20% off, money back guarantee. If they don't like it, they can reach out to me. I'll give them their money back. And
for
we will
sure.
have it in October at your event. Well,
Yeah,
and we have new products. We have our electrolytes, which are amazing, and they're perfect for those people that don't spend 4 hours in the gym sweating. They're like the perfect combo. So they're lower in sodium, Celtic salt than the average electrolyte. And then we will have the skincare line by the time October comes. It's launching in August, and it's amazing.
that's amazing. I have to do some more videos like sharing about my experience with the products, because I have I
We have
think
to
everyone
send you.
probably, but the skincare products, I don't have those yet, but I'm open to trying them for sure.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Got to do a before and after picture. They're great for all types of skin. It's such a good, like natural. We own the formula. It's very natural. It's been done with some very qualified people have created that formula. It's very clean. And then we just got our Soursop Surge back in, which was really popular at your event, and we were out of it. And one of the things we decided to do is we were using the leaves. Now we actually have the pulp from the fruit that were sourced from Brazil. And so it's even better. And it just came in last week. We just got it back in.
Amazing.
So it's
Amazing.
called the Soursop Surge Shake, and it's great just with water and ice. And yeah, it'll probably fly, but it's good quality stuff. So I'm going to send you some.
I would love that.
Yeah, I want to send you some to try the new version and then the electrolytes. And we'll send you samples of the skincare line.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And we've been having smaller events. We're having one this Saturday in Atlanta, actually. And I think I have some stuff that I can bring over there, but I'll bring it over so other people can try and experience the benefits
We
of it
have
too.
samples too of our gummies that we're happy to send over and our shakes that we're happy to send over for any of your events.
Amazing.
We're happy to send samples that people can have. And a lot of people say it calms them down. I've had even people say, now I'm not promoting this. I've had even people say that they've gotten off their antidepressants, but it is calming, anti-anxiety. It's just very peaceful. And I think it fits with the kind of vibe that you guys have.
100%.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for having me. This
yeah,
is so fun. I can't wait to see you again.
I'm super. Likewise, I'm so inspired by your story, and I have been running my business in the same way and just learning and knowing that it's coming from a place to genuinely serve, but have not figured out the money. So similar in the same way where you were just continuing to pour into it. But I just know it's what I'm supposed to be doing and that everything will be taken care of as I learn and grow, not just as a person, but as an entrepreneur and a leader and stuff like that. So just hearing your success story was refreshing. So thank
The
you.
money will come. I really believe that. The
Yeah.
money will come if you don't do it for money. And I'd love to share with your viewers or you, if you would like, a couple business tips that I've used that have been really successful for me.
Yeah.
One's on AI, one's a SWOT analysis, and then another one is actually comes from my mastermind. It's quite a few people that have been very successful in business and what they're using for marketing tactics in 2025 because the landscape is changing rapidly. So if anybody wants any of those, DM me at Hey Amy Lacey. I manage my own Instagram. Happy to send those out to you, or email admin at ilovebeme.com. ilovebeme.com. Admin, ADMIN.
We'll put that in the
Yeah.
show notes so people can connect. But yeah, thank you for your resilience and your strength and just your example. You are a beacon. Your life is a beacon of what's possible and just how to keep moving forward with intention and service. So
Thank you
I'm
for your
very proud of your
wisdom.
learning.
Thank you for your wisdom. I'm really enjoying listening to your podcast, and I would have never known about it had I not met you and your events. So I'm going to promote it on mine, and I'm going to highly recommend that people attend your events because they're really special.
Thank you so much.
And you're special in a great way.
I'm glad we're connected. I think that's like the most beautiful part of this whole experience of creating Dharma Glow is all of the people. It was always intended to be a community project, and it just gets more and more awesome because now to me, you're a part of Dharma Glow, and all the people that come are bringing their healing and their wisdom. So now it's like a super hive mind of healing from all the different dimensions, because all those things that you were talking about with the food and all that, like I don't know those things, but I'm glad to. So if we all just bring what we know, then we all can heal together and have fun doing it at our spiritual parties.
Yeah. A special person that attended named Starlight. I think her name is
Yes.
Starlight. She does videos for us all the time. She's a huge fan of Soursop. She
Yeah.
just did one the other day. It's on my phone, actually. And I'm just like, she's such a breath of fresh air, but she's different. She's different in the community that we normally attract. And I love that. But she's extremely health conscious. So
Yes.
I love
She's a
that.
bright light. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a bright light. Yes, she is. Thank you again. I'll see you in October if I don't see you before.
Sure.
And I look forward to when this comes out. I can't wait to promote it and listen to more of your podcasts.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. And thank you all so much for tuning in. We're going to put all the links that Amy listed, spoke of below so that you can tap in and connect with her and learn more about the product and order some if you're curious. And she'll be there at the event. So we'll also put tickets to the event, and we will see you all soon.
Okay,
Much love.
thank you.